Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A lot of really exciting storylines for this Michigan program going into the bowl game against Alabama. Now, I'll start with this. What, as a Michigan fan myself, personally fires me up the most is not necessarily what the score is going to read at the end of four quarters. I think it's more importantly, there's going to be a lot of young guys that get some opportunity against a really good team in Alabama to kind of show they're going to be the guys for us in 2025. I look at these kind of bowl games and say it's kind of an audition for what this program and what some of these players can mean to us in 2025. And there's going to be a lot of young talent that's going to get a lot of opportunity during this football game and kind of gives us a sense about where our roster sits heading into the 2025 year. Want to get into some names that we're watching probably the closest in this football game. Before we get into it, as always, to the Michigan fans, whether we're talking Bryce Underwood, whether we're talking the high school recruiting trail, the transfer portal, the amount of support y'all continue to show has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this. I'll start. I think the storyline that I'm most excited for is it sounds like Andrew Sprague is going to start at right tackle, and Evan Link's going to move to left tackle with Miles Hinting opting out of this football game. If there's one guy from the last couple of recruiting classes that I am a massive fan of, it's Andrew Sprague, and now is going to be the opportunity for us to get a feel for, hey, is he a guy we're comfortable starting at the offensive tackle position in 2025? When you look at the offensive line, what are some of the storylines you're looking at as well?
I mean, I obviously agree with you. Andrew Sprague's kind of that guy we look to because it didn't feel like we had elite left tackle or tackle play in general for a good chunk of this year.
Yeah, I think Miles Hinton was pretty dang solid at left for most of the year, but you look at the right side, Evan Link, a guy we knew would take a couple of years, was kind of forced to play probably earlier than I think Sherrone Moore wanted to start him. I'll say this about Evan Link. It was ugly early. There's no secret about that. I thought this kid got better as the season went on, and you'd ask me how I feel about Evan Link, and I say, I don't hate it. I don't hate him going into 2025. I actually think he can be a damn good tackle for us, but
because even he had a good end of the season. I thought he played good against Ohio State, had a good game against Northwestern. Like his development over the season was pretty good. But you're right. I mean, you saw some growing pains, but a young player, and obviously Andrew Sprague's like that kind of guy you look for, like kind of the crown jewel of the past two recruiting classes.
yeah,
For being honest, obviously Michigan's kind of ramped it back up under Sherrone Moore. But when you look at like one of those like real blue chip talents, it kind of is Andrew Sprague, and that tackle spot, it's going to be a really important one because you are going to lose Miles Hinton, who is kind of smaller.
And it's make no mistake about it, like that we have Bryce Underwood running the offense in 2025, or at least a lot of Michigan fans hope that's the case. Sherrone Moore still wants this program to be built along the lines of scrimmage. And I look on the inside of the offensive line, Greg Crippen coming back. I would expect Giovanni El-Hadi to come back as well. And I like the young talent that's in the pipeline as well. I don't have that many concerns about what the inside of the offensive line looks like at the tackle spot. Those are the questions that you want to get answered before 2025. And against Alabama, we got a chance to really get some of those answers. Now, the second storyline for me is the pass catchers. This is probably the biggest offseason storyline for Michigan as a whole, where you look at the depth chart and say what we've done on the recruiting trail, what we've done in the transfer portal so far. There's what we have coming back, guys like Derek Moore, guys like Ernest Hausman. There aren't a ton of concerns for me about this team in 2025. If there's one concern that it really needs to get addressed, especially with Bryce Underwood coming in, as the pass catchers on the outside. Now, which pass catchers stand out? If I were to ask you to give me a name that kind of has a coming out party against Alabama, where are you going?
My guess is Freddie Moore. Freddie Moore feels like a guy who's kind of on the precipice making it happen. And the issue with me and the pass catchers in this game is the quarterback play is not really giving them a great chance to really show what they have. So frankly, I don't know that we'll get those answers in this game. We'll probably get them towards the beginning of next year as Bryce Underwood takes over and we really get to see a more dynamic offense. Because unless Jaden Davis goes in, which I personally probably prefer at this point, I feel like we've seen enough from Davis Warren. We kind of know what he brings to the table. I just don't see how you get to see what these pass catchers can be, because it's not a dynamic offense when he's running the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that, but you want it because as bad as the quarterback play was, like it's hard to argue that these pass catchers were doing much to help themselves either.
No,
Freddie Moore's a great name. Freddie Moore's a great name. I'm gonna go with the true. I'm gonna go with two. I'm gonna cheat. Go with two. Channing Goodwin is a guy that is getting a lot of buzz during these practices, especially in these bowl game practices, which makes me think we're going to see a decent amount of them. And Dill, you can go to the true freshman Hogan Hansen as well. Hogan Hansen, I said pass catchers for a reason, because you know this Michigan offense is still going to feature the tight ends. And I think Michigan, I mean, I know you lose Colston Loveland, one of the best tight ends we've seen play college football in a while. Dill, Marlon Klein, Hogan Hansen, to me, has the potential to be a very dynamic tight end duo in the 2025 year. And having good tight ends with the young quarterback is going to matter. Can Hogan, I think we know.
Especially two tight ends that I think can be a little bit better than just like your traditional run in the middle. Like Hogan Hansen, a very good athlete. You saw him working on the boundary against Ohio State, being able to make a play or two. Marlon Klein, a little bit more of that maybe traditional inline guy right now, but obviously has the athletic upside. I'm kind of interested, I guess, to see what they do, because now he gets to play, I feel like, the Colston Loveland role right now. Now he's the guy working down the field, and I kind of want to see what he can do, because a lot of the stuff, it felt like in his role, this was a lot of underneath stuff. I am interested to see if they can get him to doing anything close to a Colston Loveland.
To be fair, everything was underneath for Michigan's passing attack.
Except for Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland had some breakout moments where, he caught the ball down the field because he was a unique talent. I'm interested to see if they can get Marlon Klein playing a little bit more something closer to the role that Loveland was.
Yeah, I think Marlon Klein's a guy I would give him more credit than you are as an athlete. I mean, this guy, former like German standout, comes to the United States. He's probably still learning the position to an extent and learning football to an extent. He's a freaky dude. Last position that we're pretty much you're evaluating every position, especially with how bad this Michigan offense was in 2024. Like everything is up for grabs. Still, the running back spot, Kalel Mullings, Donovan Edwards not playing in this game. Sounds like Jordan Marshall and Ben Hall are going to be the featured backs. And that, to me, Justice Haynes comes in and is the running back one. But for as much as Michigan expects to run the football in 2025, you know that we're going to lean on a couple of backs. I think you're going to get your answer in terms of who is the running back 2, a.k.a. running back 1B for this offense in 2025. If I had to make a guess, it'd be Jordan Marshall. He was kind of the guy that when Donovan Edwards got hurt in the Ohio State game, Jordan Marshall seemed to be the guy that the staff had the most confidence in. And I think Jordan Marshall's a hell of a player. Like, I know a lot of the offseason talk is going to go to Justice Haynes, and rightfully so, because Justice Haynes is damn good too. Jordan Marshall can play. And as a Michigan fan, with what I expect to be an improved offensive line, with a much more dynamic quarterback who can run the football, and Bryce, I love what this Michigan team can do running the football in the 2025 year with a guy like Justice Haynes and potentially a guy like Jordan Marshall as well.
One guy is Michael Kapana. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with him in terms of if they have any role for him in this offense. And again, he's probably not going to be the primary ball carrier. We kind of look, the writing's on the wall. Those other three, including Justice Haynes, feel like guys they want to give the ball to in just like a traditional running attack. But Michael Kapana, again, the things you've heard about him, a little bit more of a dynamic pass catching kind of running back, very, very fast. I do wonder if there's some role for him in this offense going forward in terms of like being kind of that pass catching running back as you kind of go in, like kind of what Donovan Edwards I almost wish they used him as.
Yeah. It's not me like anti-Micah Kapana. It's a little bit more like it's just going to be a hard running back rotation to crack with how good I think Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall are as football players. Defensive side of the football, to me, when you start up front, it's about the depth pieces. You know, Mason Graham, Kenneth Graham, Josiah Stewart going to the NFL specifically on the inside. Trey Pierce is probably the name. Eda to an extent as well, who I think is going to be playing on the inside. What do these guys look like? And are they guys that Michigan can rely on for a really good 20 to 30 snaps? This is the storyline for me. Am I going to get up here and say that this Michigan defensive line is going to be better than it was in 2024. No, it's hard to argue that when you lose a guy like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Josiah Stewart. I mean, all of which will be top 50 picks in the NFL draft. What I think Michigan can massively improve on is the depth. We playing guys like Kenny Grant, Mason Graham, Kenny Grant, especially Kenny Grant. It's a big body to play 50-plus snaps a game. If there's a way I think Michigan can get kind of hold serve on the defensive line, you might say, is, hey, we're deeper. Instead of having only like 3 guys that we really trust to rotate in, we got 5 or 6, kind of getting back to what Michigan was in 2023. That's my biggest storyline for me. Trey Pierce, does he look like a dude against a really good and physical Alabama offensive line? Those where my eyeballs will be to start for this Michigan defense.
Mine will be squarely in Enoetta because I'm kind of on the Trey Pierce train already. I feel like he's proven enough that, like, okay, I think this guy can play. I think he got his shine. I think he was on the field for a reason, a relatively decent amount of time in this season, given that you had 2 first-round picks kind of competing with and another really good player in Rayshon Benny. Trey Pierce, I'm pretty comfortable with. Enoetta's kind of the guy, like, does his development track kind of continue on? Because it did feel like he started to play a little bit better towards the end of the year, being able to hold up against double teams and being able to be a little bit more stout, which always felt like the issue for him because you had the athleticism, the explosiveness. My eyes will almost like exclusively be on what he's doing.
Yeah, he's a massive storyline. I wonder if he can be like a David Ajabo type guy, where it's one, he was a traitsy guy to begin with. Coming out of high school, Enoetta was a better athlete than a football player. And so that tells me you knew he wouldn't be a year 1 guy. And then you combine that with kicking onto the inside. We thought he'd play edge, kind of puts on some weight, goes to the inside. It doesn't necessarily stunt his development, but it's just more development that needs to take place before Enoetta can really be a guy for Michigan. Year 3, kind of like how it went with David Ajabo. It's like, hey, you never even heard of him for his first 12 months with this program. Then he started hearing the whispers, and then he gets on the football field, and he's like immediately one of the best edge rushers in the country. Can you get that track with Enoetta is probably what I'm looking at. Jayshawn Barham, if he comes, I'm going to be interested because there's a lot of buzz around him coming and kicking down to the edge rusher position, which I think would make a lot of sense for a guy like Jayshawn Barham. And apparently the NFL scouts agree. Jayshawn Barham, considering going to the NFL, said, hey, we might like you. Still kind of like Abdul Carter, really just hyper athletic, big body off-ball linebacker where it's like you're kind of a little too freaky to play off-ball linebacker.
I'm comfortable with where Jayshawn Barham plays. I think he can be really good at either spot.
Oh, yeah.
That, to me, makes it more interesting to see what they do at the linebacker spot next to Ernest Hausman, who, again, kind of emerged as a very, very good line. I mean, that Ohio State game, I would implore any Michigan fan to go watch it and watch what he was doing because that's like close to what we were seeing with Junior Colson. I think you were getting that type of level from him. I think now it gets interesting to see what they do as Ernest Hausman's running mate because that, to me, is the position that kind of opens up with Jayshawn Barham kicking down. And I don't like Jaden Hood and Jimmy Rolder started to play good football for Michigan towards the end of the year last year in their limited snaps. You look at a guy like Cole Sullivan.
I was going to say you have to start with Cole. Like in terms of players we're excited to see play. Like it has to start with Cole Sullivan because if there is like an all-American dude in that room from a youngster standpoint, I would say it's Cole Sullivan. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off. It was more just.
No, I almost think you're sleeping on what like Jaden Hood was like. He's gonna play, I think, next year. I thought in this back end of like that Ohio State game again, another guy who was playing really well. Jimmy Rolder playing really well. Cole Sullivan certainly has the upside that I wouldn't say those other 2 guys have. So you'd probably prefer it to be Cole Sullivan at this point because I do think athletically he's at a bit of a different level than those 2. But those 2 are going to be tough guys to playing for that job because, again, I think they're becoming really stout players, good physical linebackers who take on blocks well on the inside.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about players to when we got players to watch, and you have to start with Cole Sullivan, in my opinion, from that linebacker spot. And I think he's going to get some opportunity. Okay, one more front 7 defender, Dominic Nichols. Again, hard to get on the football field with D. Moore and Josiah Stewart this year. You heard the buzz with Dominic Nichols as a freshman. This might be the game where you kind of see it manifest. He's a freaky dude coming out of high school. That's probably the last guy on the front seven. Going to the back end, Dill, Josiah Edmond probably leads the list for me. I would like to see, and just kind of, again, because I view this bowl game more of a, hey, can we figure out what we have? And it's not like, hey, Amir Hall like gave us a lot of good, but it's you also want to kind of know what you have in the boundary cornerback spot going into next year. Josiah Edmonds probably at the top of the list, and then I'm interested to see what Zeke Berry does. Because I think that'll tell us where they plan to play Zeke Berry next year. They'll much better than I expected as a boundary cornerback, but I think we all agree his best position is probably playing the nickel. Where does he play in this Wink Martindale defense? That's probably where my eyes will be as well.
Well, yeah, because I would think at this point, like if he's playing boundary, that'll make me kind of think there's a good chance he's just going to play that spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like towards the end of last year, I get rolling guys. You don't necessarily want to go out with a Josiah Edmond guy early in his career, and like you have to win the Ohio State game. I think everyone kind of knew that, so it wasn't going to be like rolling the dice. In the bowl game, I think there's a little bit more freedom to, okay, if he gives up a play because he's inexperienced, that is what it is. It's the bowl game.
And that's kind of where I'm at with this bowl game in general. Is like, look, I'm not saying I'm gonna root for Michigan. Like I want them to win the football game, but if I'm gonna see mistakes, I want to see them from the young cats that can go learn. That's kind of my take is this game, especially for how Michigan's season has gone in 2024. It's not like we're going to be remembering 7-6 versus 8-5. Like that's kind of my take on it. So I'd like to see some of the young guys play, and if it's sloppy, it's sloppy, and they get some learning experience going into 2025. We'll pause it there. We'll do an instant reaction to this football game. We might even do a little live watch party. Watch with the Michigan fans. We'll update you guys on that. The boys got to figure out some technical things if we're going to do that. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.